All right. I think
Nice, we're
we're
going.
ready to go. Podcast number one.
All right. Well, we're off to a good start already. We didn't forget to hit record.
Yeah, as long as it's working, it says recording. So
Yeah, it is.
that's
We're
nice.
crushing this thing.
The cool thing is that anyone that does listen to this is listening to me and you learn, being that we're brand new to this.
Yep.
So,
Yep. That's actually one of the first things I was going to talk about is the fact that well, I'll let you intro it and then I'll tell you what I was thinking. But
yeah, no, this is the A is A podcast. And like Andy and I really truly believe that truth is the cornerstone to your success. There is a lot of conflicting, opinions and stuff out there in today's world. And I know me and you both get somewhat frustrated, in terms of that. So maybe the podcast, can provide some insight and, some direction to help inspire people to live larger lives. And that's our hope. We're going to have fun with it and see where it goes.
yeah, and just kind of touch on probably, I imagine, over the course of this, a lot of different topics. It's going to be a lot of fitness and nutrition and wellness type stuff. That's kind of our area. And that's where a lot of the misconceptions are, and where a lot of people need to get a little more accurate information. There's just so much, like you said, misconceptions and misinformation out there. We're going to try to sort through it a little bit and kind of give people a healthy perspective on some topics. But who knows where else we'll go? I mean, it doesn't have to stay limited to just, we might get on some rants that are God knows what topics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, exactly. The focus on truth, just honest speech and genuine, authentic advice. That's the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I know, like I said in the beginning, with this being brand new to me and you, there's definitely a growth mindset here and a beginner's mindset. And I think that's a good place for us to start, with this being topic number one, maybe a beginner's mindset,
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking was this first podcast could be like a foundational mindset sort of thing. Just some of the basic kind of mindset things that we would like to see clients have in the gym, people who are approaching fitness and health and stuff like that, just so that they can get kind of on the right track with what they should be thinking and focusing on versus like some of the other distractions and traps that people fall into.
Yeah.
And yeah, actually, oh yeah.
Yeah. What are those traps? Like I know that you train full time, and you've been in this industry for quite some time. What do you see like as common themes?
Yeah, I'll get to that. That's we've got a few of those to touch on here. I actually just wanted to start out by just talking about like growth mindset for a second, because some people might not even know what that is. But there's the idea in psychology, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And all that is just the idea that if you have a growth mindset, you believe that you can always learn and improve. It's the idea that even if you can't do something right now, if you put your mind to it and you put in the effort and the work and stuff, that you can achieve something down the road, as opposed to that fixed mindset, which I think a lot of people have. And I've had it certainly in certain areas of life, where that's like believing that you can't learn, you can't improve, whatever traits you have are fixed. So you hear people say, like, for example, I'm not a math person. And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you think I'm not a math person, you don't put any effort into learning math, you avoid math, whatever. Versus a growth mindset might be like, okay, I'm not very good at math right now, but if I applied myself, I could improve and be good at math. It's the idea that you can always improve and grow beyond where you are. And that's one of the first things I would like to get people, if there are fixed mindset people out there, I would like to encourage people to have that growth mindset, the idea that you can always put in the work and the effort and become better at something, and you might surprise yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think that in my own life, what I've seen is it's definitely can be really scary going from, the fixed mindset to growth, because the fixed mindset generally is a very safe place to be. You
Yeah.
feel secure, it's a routine, it's somewhat maybe structured, you know it. But then when you start jumping over into a new discipline, routine, a goal, um, you're probably not the most efficient at that. And failure,
You probably suck.
yeah, yeah. And I think
And that's what I want people to understand, is to embrace the suck.
for
That's a good place to be. That's what I want people to understand, is that that's a good place to be, because that's when you're in an area of discomfort or in an area where you suck, that's an opportunity to learn something new and to become better,
yeah, that's a huge
as
mindset.
opposed to being afraid of that.
That's a big shift up here,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, like, social media really paints the pretty picture of, like, everything needs to be a 10 out of 10 all the time. And so someone that wants to go through that suck process is going to not be that 10 out of 10. And
Yeah.
that's discouraging right from the start. Like, let's take like rock climbing, for example, right? Like, you're interested in it, maybe inspired by it, but you know nothing about it. There's going to be a long time period of learning, failing, maybe embarrassing yourself, getting frustrated, getting injured, all to get to that maybe Instagram post 4 or 5 years down the road where you hit that first, 510 or something, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that intermediate period is, I won't say not fun, because it definitely, to me, I love that process.
And that's what I want to encourage people to, I mean, we'll probably jump all over the place, but that's one of the points. Learn to enjoy that process. Because I do too. Like, I really enjoy the whole learning. I like to suck at something and you slowly learn it and figure it out. And like, once you finally achieve it, once you get to that 10 out of 10, that's usually not as fulfilling as you think. It's just like, oh, I did it, great. But when you look back, it was the process of learning that was where all the value came from, where you became a better person and learned some lessons. And ultimately, that's the thing that you kind of, if you've gone through this enough, that's the part that you start to enjoy versus just getting the result at the end.
That took me a long time to realize that what the actual achievement itself, when that is accomplished, lasts for about a day. And
yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, you get something that you've worked really hard for, or whatever it is, and you get you do a write-up on it, or you call some friends and family, or you get something out of that for maybe a day, sometimes less than that. And then you come to these hard conclusions over and over, that the process that could take a month to years has to be enjoyable, or else you're not going to want to work towards that achievement, because that's not the super pleasurable piece. Is the achievement. It lasts a day.
Right.
So the process needs to be something, I feel, that is inspirational and something that aligns directly with your values and your goals in your life, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think you see this in clients or in yourself? I mean, is this something that people struggle with a lot, where they have a fixed mindset around like what they're capable of doing, and so it limits them as far as being able to grow and being able to push through that?
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of different examples of that. Like, one example could be, like you said, push through it. So maybe there's a pain tolerance, right? In a hard workout, at what level do they quit or want to quit? There could be, a patience piece there. They've got a fixed mindset that in 90 days, if they don't hit their goal, they're done. That's very fixed. Yeah, no, it's definitely all over the place. And I think that is probably, it could be quite possibly the number one reason people don't achieve goals. I think it's 91% don't achieve the goals they set out.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, even though it's a goal, if you go into that goal with a fixed mindset, that it's going to limit your actions to get you to that goal.
Yep.
for
Yeah,
sure.
totally.
So if I want to be a better climber, but I know that, I tell myself I can only climb one time per week because of all these excuses.
Mhm.
Climbing shouldn't be a goal.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's just very fixed mindset. Or I say, my chin-ups aren't strong, so my climbing will be weak. Instead of saying my chin-ups aren't strong and I have two options, improve technique or improve chin-ups. Like that's the growth mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it a lot. And I think there was a saying there, you are your thoughts. I don't
Yep.
know who said that. And I think that is absolutely true. And that could be unconscious thoughts, conscious thoughts, or your words.
Right.
Being very careful with that fixed versus growth and how you frame those, in health and fitness especially. I think that's paramount. I
Yeah.
know one area I want to touch on just with the fixed versus growth mindset is small wins. I
Mhm.
have found that over the years, accumulating numerous small wins lead to growth long term.
Yep.
And yep, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the small wins, they also just reinforce and teach you that you can grow.
Mhm.
I mean, a big goal that's way down the road that's something that's going to take a long time to get to, and you're not going to see that for a while, and you're going to doubt yourself an awful lot along the way, like thinking you'll never get there. But if you have little tiny small wins, that's like, oh, I can get better. I mean, maybe it was 1% better, but I can do this, or I can change this habit or whatever. And that kind of teaches you that, oh, I am someone who can actually grow and improve. When we see they're taking steps in the right direction, it's like, well, do the math. I mean, it's just going to take another 1,000 steps to get there, or 10,000 steps or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, those small wins really help you learn that you can improve.
Yeah, and I think like I do this in my own life. I frame it as even though it's a small step, it's a big win.
Mm-hmm.
So, it could be, a new exercise, a small little progression, a new tweak in jujitsu with a move, or just something very little and minute. But to me, that's a big win because it's progression and I frame it as a nice achievement, instead of, oh yeah, that was small. It's a win. It's a little improvement. It's not enough to keep building that self-esteem. So I like to almost over exaggerate it within myself to keep the motivation high.
Yeah, and another little mindset shift to do here too is to realize that um, a win doesn't necessarily have to be that you achieved some goal or that you were successful in, like, say, a lift that you were trying to do or whatever. You can fail at something that you're trying to do, and that can still be a win if you learn from it. Like if I want to do, some new gymnastics move or something, and I'm going for it today. I think I'm ready, and I don't get it. I fail.
Mhm.
I'll leave the gym thinking to myself, like, oh, what happened? Like, why did that go wrong? Like, what do I need to do? Like, as long as you're learning from it, learning is always a win. So you don't even necessarily have to like achieve something. Like the achievement is the learning. What did you get out of that session? And you can get just as much, sometimes you get way more out of a failure than you do out of a success.
I was just gonna say the same exact thing. I would almost say that you do, but only if you have the awareness to go back and dissect that.
Right. As opposed to just ruminating and being fixed on just the failure and like, I didn't get it. And you're not examining it. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, like you said, you got to have that awareness and you have to actually take the time to reflect and think, well, why did things go that way? And if you can figure that out, you just had a huge win.
Yeah, I want to dive into that a little bit deeper, from like a nutrition perspective.
Hmm.
So like let's take someone that has struggled to stick to a healthy eating plan, right? And they fail, or they define it as failing, they haven't hit their goal.
Right.
Like I think that there's a huge opportunity there to ask yourself, why were the reasons that I did not stick to the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Not I didn't stick to the plan, I suck, and then try next diet. Like, why didn't I? And I don't mean like, oh, I don't like vegetables. I mean like scheduling, or,
Not
being
thinking
able
how
to,
to meal prep, or having the wrong things in the cupboard, or
yes.
not taking care of your sleep or stress, so that you were just just you're setting yourself up for failure in other ways
And
by being overtired or something. Or yep.
I think if beginners can adopt that ability to dissect the whether they're wins or losses, the awareness around what it was that either got the job done or didn't get the job done,
Yes.
that is something that you could take someone working out and maybe doing something for 20 years and they can never have that.
Right.
I think that is a gold mine, especially in the nutrition side of it. Fitness for sure, no doubt. And we could, go down many different areas with that based on specifics and goals. But the food area, I think, is just so big, because I've asked so many people over the years, how many, diets have you tried, or, all of this. And it is many. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, if I were to tackle, say, something in the same area more than once or twice and fail,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to step back and
Mm-hmm.
be like, look, before I jump into the fire a third time, what do I need to change?
Yeah, you need to change something. What was it in my process that ended up with this result? So what do I need to change about that process? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, can I jump on to the next topic? Is that cool by you?
Absolutely.
And one of the other things I was thinking is the idea that effort is key. Because this goes right along with, you mentioned something about pain tolerance and stuff, and learning learning how to push through discomfort sometimes. Change requires effort. And I think a lot of people have a hard time dealing with discomfort and putting forth the effort that they need to change sometimes. It's a really tough thing. I'm not sure exactly where I want to go with this, but I know a lot of people, for example, like going back to fitness, who come to the gym, are just going through the motions and hoping that going through the motions will get them the results that they want.
Yep.
And one of the things I try to do is, or what I'd like to try to do more with clients, is help them just realize that you have to put in some effort. You can't just go through the motions. You have to actually get to a point where you're like getting to like that last rep you can do and trying to push through it. That's a really tough thing for people who are new to fitness to do. And I'm sure you've seen that a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure. There isn't a hardwired mechanism yet in terms of knowing what their potential is.
Right.
So when they feel a 3 out of 10, and it's obviously based on perception, but that may be in their mind a 10 out of 10.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, effort for sure. I think we could look at that from like a intensity standpoint, definitely. But I think also effort in terms of like putting in the work 7 days a week. There's really no other way to put this. Like, we can, sugarcoat it, but you got to give a shit.
Right.
And so, like, 1 day a week, 45 minutes, and then eating, half-ass, and you think that's good. Like, you got to have just maybe that works for you. And if it does, that's cool. Then you wouldn't be, unhappy with results.
Right.
But there's a process of taking a look at your values in life. Okay. And I talk about this, and this will probably be a reoccurring theme a lot, but identifying your values and then correlating your goals to your values so your actions meet your goals. If those miss, you're wasting your time, like 100% out of 100% time. Like, your top 5 goals are, your kids, your job, international travel, and like reading. And then your goal is to lose weight, compete in CrossFit, and, be a great parent. they miss.
Mhm.
So like they need to, and this is great. And we've given people through the years so much permission for themselves to change either.
Mhm.
So they don't need to create goals that society tells them they need to, right? Like if I lost 10 pounds, I'd look better in the summer. Maybe. Like, do you truly want to lose 10 pounds?
Yep.
And
Yep.
if you do, your actions, your defined values need to meet that goal. So,
Yep.
i.e., eating cleaner, blah, 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 blah. And I think that I have to do this constantly. Actually, on my laptop, I have right here, it's like crazy, values.
It's so funny the way, like, because you haven't seen, I kind of like outlined a few things we were going to talk about, and
Yeah.
you keep jumping ahead to like things that I already planned to talk about. We're like so on the same page here, but I love that you're just like going right to where I want to go with all these things.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think, we spend a lot of time over the years,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the effort, and I think it's very hard. It's impossible long term, but to put effort in an area that's not a value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
The
like,
values are key.
if you keep failing at something multiple times, I'm going to say that your daily actions and your effort don't align with that topic, with that
Yep.
area. And that's totally fine. But you have to go above the story and like take all the emotion out of it and to say, look, this is the story. And my goal is this, and this is the result, and these are my values. You got to change one of those categories.
Mhm.
And I've done it many, 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 many times in my life. So like an example, like for me, my values right now, these change. I update them once a year. And it may only be one thing I change. It could be 4, it could be none.
You do a great job of reflecting on values. Like you do a really good job of that, because I mean, I think more people need to actually, most people have not taken any time to figure out exactly what their true values really are.
Mhm.
And then you're in a really bad place because you think you value something, but then you're not achieving that because you don't really value that. And it's really, really important to get clear on what you really value so that you can actually work towards what matters to you. And then you're actually going to care about succeeding and doing the things that it takes to get there.
It'll almost come natural.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? Like,
you want this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I define like for myself, and this is why I'm pretty strict with it, but like your values are where you want to spend time, money, energy, and thoughts.
Yep. Yep. It's where you want to place your effort.
So imagine a world where you're spending all your time, money, energy, and thoughts on shit you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nightmare.
Yep.
That's like depression and like anxiety and all these issues because it's not where you want to be. Right. And I'm not saying your highest value is like on a tropical beach, because that is not going to work. That is not going to be purposeful. It's not going to provide any level of mastery. It's not going to work. So when we get to reality, like where you want to spend your time, money, energy, and thoughts, it allows me to ask myself when I'm looking at like my weekly calendar or any kind of like appointment or something, does it align with my values? Mm-hmm. And I say no to a ton of stuff because it doesn't. And I also say yes to a lot of stuff if it does.
Yeah.
But like
that's a great North Star to always have. Like when you have to decide where you're going to place your effort or what you're going to take on, does it align with my values or not? Should be like your North Star.
It is. And I think that's a good place to put that. And it allows you to prioritize. So if you have 3 options, let's say, I've got a business meeting, rock climbing opportunity, or go hunting. Mm-hmm. For me right now, based on the order of my values, I'm going to do the business meeting. Yep. And after that, I would go climbing and then I would go hunting, right? So like I have that listed out and it changes all the time. Like for me right now, values, family, business, jujitsu, movement, hunt, and regenerative agriculture. Yep. And that's the places you will find me.
I see the way you live every day, and it's just always focused on those things. Yep.
Yes.
Everything you do serves those things, and if something doesn't, then that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, and everyone, we're human, right? And so like we fall out of routines, we get into funks. And so I try to be quite aware of if I am off track, why?
Hmm.
And I'll ask myself, well, dude, it's because you spent the last 3 days doing X, Y, Z, and all those suck compared to what you want to be doing. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have done those, because life's not perfect by any means. But you have to just be cool with being like, okay, I'm not in a good mood today or this week, and this is the reasons why, and just own that and just move on. But you're not in this horrible cyclical pattern without knowing why you're in the horrible cyclical pattern.
Right, right. And we are going to do things, like you said, that we don't want to do sometimes, because a lot of life is exploring and figuring out what you like. So you try something, and maybe after a couple months you realize you don't want to do that. But that wasn't wasted time. You figured something out there,
Yeah.
So I've gone down avenues before where I tried something for a few months or even a year or whatever, and then was like, okay, that's not where I want to be. So I need to I analyze like, oh, this isn't something I actually value, and then I update and change my values.
Yes.
So there's an exploring process there. You can't beat yourself up over. You can't think that that chasing something and then falling out of love with it or whatever was wasted time. It wasn't. You learned something there.
Yeah, and
you learned about who you are and what you actually value.
100%. I look at that as growth.
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
Growth versus fixed mindset. Like you weren't in the same spot you were a year ago, just because you're not sticking with something, and you realize it doesn't align with your values or your new goals, and you give yourself permission to move on. That's just, I think of it as like adding to your degree in life. Like, you've got your school degree, and that's that, but then you have life degree. And all of those experiences that you've won, you've lost, you've loved, you've hated, add to that degree. But the worst place you can be, and I have seen this in my life, is I worked for an insurance company out of college, and it was like, the cubicle job. And it was, for me, and my personality, it was a nightmare. And so I set the stage to do something different, obviously. But what was very interesting is to get to know some of those people that when I came in were already miserable for 5 years. And then when something weird and you circle back or somehow life aligns and you see someone again 5 or 10 years later, they're in the same spot.
They're still doing that. Yeah.
And that makes me nauseous.
Yeah.
And not for them as much or myself. It's just the whole idea of that is such a fixed process, and that they haven't moved on or giving themselves the courage to say, you know what, piss on it. I'm going to put out 25 applications today. And if I fail, at least I'm in a better spot than where I was 3 months ago. I just think that's huge.
That just goes right back to what I was saying about, effort being kind of a crucial component of this, because we fall into, we are creatures of habit, and you fall into pattern. And a lot of people will live tomorrow the exact same way they did today, and they're going to do that again next week, and they're going to do that again next year and in 10 years. And that's just because habit is easy. Habit is, even if you're not happy where you are, habit is still effortless and comfortable to some extent. But if you want to get out of that, cycle, if you want to be one of those people who leaves that cubicle job, then you have to put in the effort of, putting out the applications to new companies, or taking some time to, reassess your values and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to take a choice to actually put some work into this and make the change if you want to.
Yeah. And I think, and I've done this with myself in the past many times, is reframing those times in your life as exciting new times. Like, yeah, it's scary, and you don't know maybe what's ahead. And I've done this with building projects and businesses and public talks and this and that, and I don't know what I'm doing going into it. A lot like this podcast. Like, I don't know, you could have 2 people listen, you could have 1 million. but all I do know is that I will regret not doing it. And
Yeah.
I would rather fail miserably and try
Hmm.
than just be fixed and exist. No, I would just rather fail 50 more times in my life and call it a good run.
Sure. Yeah. And being okay with failure is a big mindset shift. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't fail. You're
Well,
going to fail 99% of the time in order to have success.
yeah, and one thing I realized a while back was no one cares that you fail other than you.
Yeah.
Like
And that took
you,
me a long time to figure out, because I worry a lot I always have, about what other people think. And you're right, though. Everyone is focused on themselves and their own life. And if they're good people, they want well for others too. No one is sitting back criticizing you, or if they are, then who cares? Should be your mindset. But no one cares if you fail. I have so much respect for people that I see who are trying and just failing and failing and failing and failing, but they are trying and they eventually get somewhere, but I'm just like, I'm inspired by that, by people who fail and fail big.
And I think we wrap ourselves up, and it could be the ego. I know that you listened to that Eckhart Tolle talk there with Russell Brand, and so did I. It could be our ego saying that we think we're much bigger than we really are, so lots of people will care if we fail because they're all watching.
Sure.
I'll break it to most people, and I remind myself constantly, no one's watching, almost no one.
You are the center of your own world, but you are not the center of anyone else's.
No, not at all. And it's the same thing with public speaking. Like 15 or so years ago, I was really nervous about doing those kinds of talks. And it's natural to still be nervous for everyone, but there's ways of coping with that. And one of the ways I did that was realizing that 99% of the people watching me talk don't want to be where I am. So by default, I'm winning.
Yeah, totally.
At least I'm in the arena. I could be booed off the stage and just sent home. And it's like, dude, at least I gave this a shot while you sat there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why that's why we want to do this podcast this is, for me, like, I have no idea how to podcast. I've never been a podcast host. I'm not particularly good at public speaking. I haven't done a lot of it yet, but I'm excited to like put myself in this new environment and try this new challenge and just get better at it over time.
Yeah.
And we're going to have probably many episodes right off the start that are not as crisp as they could be, but you know what? You figure it out as you go, and that's fun.
It's life. Yeah. And for sure. I hold no expectations for me or you. And just like with beginners and clients that are just starting in any endeavor of life, whether it's at our facility or elsewhere, I really respect and find it attractive for those jumping into the fire.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to do.
That's the hardest thing to do. And to see, like, whether it's a failure or a win, the blood, the sweat, the mistakes, like, that is attractive. And what is not attractive is perfection, sterile, very 100% politically correct all the time.
Yep.
That is so nauseating. And it is what it is. Like, you always have that percent. But I think that if more people, beginners, advanced, whatever level you want to put you at, gave yourself permission to fail, man, just imagine the stuff that could be accomplished.
That's why I like what we do in our gym, where I think we really try to praise effort, not necessarily results, but just the effort, and praise people's willingness to show up and just be there. I mean, that's the stuff that I want to reinforce. Yeah,
I tell people when we do our free consultations all the time that they already did the hardest step.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's for real. Like, to Google like gyms near me, and then to call, and then to show up and open the door and sit down, boom, 90% done.
Yep.
And most
people snowballs, but getting started is the hardest part.
For sure. And it is for me, like, and all, like, what, 4 or 5 years ago, new to climbing, 2.5 years ago, new to jujitsu, all this stuff where I'm like sweating before and nervous. And like, we did the new facility out here 3 years ago, sweating over that.
Yep.
And I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather just go down in flames at trying and following my values and doing things for the right reason than just sit back and just watch life go by.
And how much better is your life for opening the new gym, for starting rock climbing, for starting jujitsu? I mean, what a great process to spend. Like, life should be an adventure. I mean, you don't want to just sit around doing the same thing all the time. Like,
yeah,
try new stuff. And if you crash and burn, cool. Like, give yourself a pat on the back for it,
I said this earlier in the beginning, when we first started talking today, was almost like looking forward to new chapters.
Yep.
Like for me, a brand new chapter, and if you remember with the values, was regenerative agriculture. I am not a farmer at all, but I am passionate about healthy food and how it's produced.
Yes.
And so all I'm doing is reading and communicating with some local people that are very much smarter than I am, and I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm just sort of starting, and we're going to be raising our own chickens in our backyard. We're going to have a huge garden here. I've researched wood chip gardening, raised beds, how to build a chicken tractor out of PVC. None of that stuff about a year ago was I remotely on my radar.
Right.
And I'm not holding myself to any standard other than like, it's a value, and I'm passionate about healthy food and production and, how livestock is raised. And I'm just going to keep going forward. I have no idea. Maybe none of my chickens will live. I have no idea, but maybe they will. And
they're excited about it, and you're going to dive into the fire. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Last year, I bought a bike, that trek bike.
Yep.
And not a biker. And I bought a helmet, and I just started riding, and I burn out the first few rides and went way too hard and this and that. And I don't know, I'm just learning it, and I think for me, and I think for a lot of people, I think that one of my life coaches years ago told me that life is like an onion, where like it's constantly peeling layer by layer. And I think each new chapter and adventure is a layer, and you just peel it off. And that's why you stay happy and inspired and all of that.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Another thing I had here was learning to love the process, like maybe valuing the journey instead of the destination. Because certainly a lot of people who get into fitness and health, like what they're focused on is, I want to look good in the swimsuit ASAP, or maybe they have a performance goal. I want to squat a certain amount of weight or something like that. But I think what we've learned after doing this for 20 years now or whatever is that the process itself is far more rewarding. That's where all the fulfillment comes from. That's where you learn a lot of lessons. Like, all the benefits that I've gotten from working out and nutrition and, being in the health and wellness space. The easy benefits to list are things like having a healthy body and all that. And that's great. That's one of my top values. I'm happy to have had that. But the stuff that I didn't expect to get from this journey has been actually some of the best stuff. And it's just like the person that it's made me, all the lessons that I've learned along the way, learning to enjoy the pursuit of mastery. I think that's way more fun. We already touched on that than just getting the result at the end, which is, fulfills you for a day. Yeah, I mean, long-term success pretty much always comes from enjoying the process versus being focused on the goal at the end. I think I heard on a podcast recently, someone saying like the example of two people, they both want to walk 1,000 miles this year. That's like a goal of theirs or something, walk 1,000 miles this year. One person is focused on, they want to walk 1,000 miles this year. The other person just loves walking. They love going for their daily walk. They enjoy it. And who's going to get there first? Maybe this person is really driven. Maybe, who knows who'll get there first. But once this person gets their 1,000 miles, now they're just kind of done because they didn't really love it. Versus the person who just really enjoys being out and going for a walk, they're going to keep doing it for the rest of their life. And it leads to a lot more long-term success and results in the end.
And the nice thing is that whether they get to the 1,000 miles or not, they enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the result ends up becoming irrelevant if you really like the process.
For sure.
And health and fitness really is like a journey. I mean, it's never ending, especially when you get later in life. You know, you're not going to be setting PRs anymore. Eventually, we all start to decline. Like, I mean, there's a lot of lifts that I did in my 20s or gymnastic moves I did in my 20s that I'm probably not going to do again, like going into my 40s now.
Yep.
So you have to let go of the result oriented mindset and just enjoy being out there and exploring, you know, your new movements and exploring the process of learning. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. None of us want to look back and say, you know, boy, those 20 or 30 years, I did not enjoy that process, right? And it could be your job, it could be, you know, setting goals that really just never resonated with you. Yeah, I think that's a constant check-in with people all the time, you know, and I think there's a maturity standpoint there with, you know, with that process being defined as like 1A, the process isn't fun at all and sucks. That's not where you want to be. But then also people thinking that where I want to be, it is more defined as like a honeymoon on the golf course, on the beach, you know, getting drunk. Like that's not reality either.
Right.
And
a lot of times that's not going to be very fulfilling if you get there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who think that they want to be on a beach, but like after a week, you're like, okay, I want.
Yeah, like 1 to 2 weeks at school, and then life will sort of blast you, and then you're going to realize you need a purpose, you need to be chasing something, you know. So yeah, with the process standpoint, I think people would need to tread lightly with two things: making sure that the process they're not fantasizing.
Right.
I think that's important, but then also being honest with being okay with saying that the process that I'm currently doing or have done does suck or isn't what I want it to be. Like that's okay too, because I think there's a lot of fluff saying, you know, how was your day? It's great. Is it really great? Maybe. I don't know. And who cares? That's for you to define that.
Yeah.
But I think that having the ability to step back and to say, you know what, like, this is great, this isn't so great, and this is bad, and then here's what I'm going to shift around. There's a big piece with being okay with that, for sure.
I think the theme of this first episode is definitely going to be awareness and values.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is what all these things just keep circling back to.
Yeah. It's cool that it's sort of where this has started, because like I think that's a foundational piece. Like if we can get into like, you know, the microbiome, right? Like that's sort of like the tip of maybe a pyramid. But like this is a big piece that no matter what, you know, tip you get on the next, you know, book you read, doesn't really matter unless a lot of this is implemented. And then you can build from there. And it's not built once, it's continually built.
Yep. It's a process. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to start, you know, our podcast. I wanted to make the first episode about this because it is, like you said, so foundational. I mean, the reason that we're doing this, the reason that we're investing this time into this, not even knowing if it'll take off or whatever, is because we value honest communication and clarity and education and all the topics that we plan to talk about. So in future episodes, we'll have like, we'll get more specific on like actual, like a topic of the day. But I think starting generally like this with the most important piece, which is what do you value and why are you doing what you're doing, is a really good place to start. So that's why I wanted to make this the first episode.
That's perfect. That's great. No.
Another mindset thing, I just jotted down a whole bunch of little notes, was overcoming your ego. And you kind of already touched on that a little bit too. That was a really hard one for me. You know, because everybody wants to look good. Everybody wants to impress others. Everybody wants to, you know, feel amazing and cool and all this and that. And and everyone is most people are afraid to look bad or fail in front of others or that sort of thing. And that can be a huge limiter. I mean, it prevents you from trying things that you're bad at because you don't want to look bad or fail in front of people, or just feel bad about yourself, if you can't do something. In exercise, it can lead to you compromising form, because if you're like ego lifting, you want to lift the heavier weights, you're going to not focus on what matters, which is like the quality, because you're just going for higher numbers or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything about how ego plays a role in life in general, and how overcoming your ego, or at least being aware of how it's limiting you, is a valuable skill.
Yeah, that's a topic that I'm trying to definitely learn more about, for sure. Like we mentioned, Eckhart Tolle, he's one that I'm really probably taking the most away from that. But from what I've seen is that the ego is a secondary voice, right? Telling you what you should be or what you think you are. And then you have the you. The ego tells you stories that I think props you up into what I had defined earlier as the fantasy land.
Yeah.
And it's with especially like fitness, whether it comes to like muscles or running a sub 5-minute mile or whatever it is, a lot of that can be your ego speaking, or it can be your true value. So like an example, we could take jujitsu, like example one, ego. You have, I want to take jujitsu to beat people up. Okay, that's your ego. Or I want to take jujitsu to be healthy, feel good about myself, and learn new stuff. Not ego. So there's multiple things there. Like I want to learn a handstand for an Instagram picture. Ego. I want to learn a handstand so I can get healthy shoulders and become more mobile.
Yep.
Ego. And yeah, we're always, and the neat thing is we will never not have the ego. We will always have it, no matter who you are. But it's like, I think Tolle says, it's the awareness around the ego.
Exactly. Yep. You want to see how most people are controlled by their ego, and you want to see how it's controlling you, so that you can, like you said, the ego is always going to be there. You don't get rid of your ego. What Eckhart Tolle would say is that you transcend it. It's there, but you just are no longer controlled by it. You're no longer a slave of it. Yeah, that's it's such a big one for me. I mean, you know me, like for a long time, I didn't want to work out in front of people. I mean, you know that I train really hard. I've accomplished some things in fitness, that are, you don't get there unless you put in a lot of time and work and effort.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of failure along the way. And I always do my training at home alone, as opposed to like in a gym where people can see me, because it was a big mental block for me for most of my life, that I just did not want people to see me struggling and failing. I wanted to master it and then go show off like what I could do. But I didn't want people to see all the failure and difficulty and challenge that I struggled through to get there.
Yep.
And that's something I'm trying to shift my mindset with, because that's where, like we already talked about, that's where all the value lies, in the journey and all the struggle and all the failure. And I want other people to embrace that.
Yep.
I need to lead the way by like allowing them to see, by being okay with it myself, so that they can see that, and then they can take from my example, or hopefully be inspired, Yeah. And that's a tough one. So I definitely empathize with people who struggle with their ego.
For sure. I would say that they would take more away from seeing you fail,
big time,
than they would, the perfect straddle planche or hand.
Well, if I go on YouTube and I watch like a video of like people training or something like that, I absolutely love watching videos of people showing their training leading up to it, and like how terrible they were at 1 month and then 2 months and 3 months. And, you see them slowly get better over time, but I love seeing them like falling over and not being able to complete the rep and getting frustrated and all that, because it kind of makes you feel okay with going through that yourself, because so much of social media is all you see is the end result and the perfect form and the person who's already achieved it. Yep. And then, I think people need to highlight a little bit more the process that gets you there.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about that.
So much.
And it's and I laugh just because you sort of like gulp at the thought of that, right? Like documenting that process.
Yep.
Because you're right. Like, look at how much time we've spent in the gym, whether learning something behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's pretty ugly.
It's really ugly.
And then sure, we're get it and we're post it and this and that. And then everyone, will think that just came naturally, but it is ugly.
And we do a disservice to people if we only post the end result and they think it came naturally. Because I really don't want people to think that this stuff comes naturally, because it doesn't. Well, I want them to understand how much effort and failure and, it goes into it. And then they're okay with going through that struggle themselves. It's like.
Yeah. And I think the more that message gets out to individuals and beginners, being that we're somewhat harping on the mindset piece there, is setting them up for reality with goal setting. So if me and you or whoever posts, the perfect straddle plan, it may look quite easy from an outsider's perspective to jump from where they are to wanting that fast.
Yep.
And it took 3 years.
Right.
Instead of, maybe framing whether it's the process around what that took, or the steps to get there, because I see it. We get occasional requests from people that will come in with an initial goal of like handstand push-ups, and push-ups on the floor are hard, like regular push-ups. And as you know, they're different planets.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but it gives you a very eye-opening perspective into I wouldn't call it being blind, but just not understanding
how long the road is.
How long that road is. And maybe that's it could be, whether it's us or whoever's fault with portraying it as, oh yeah, like took me a week, because I can say, for as long as me and you have been at this game, it all comes hard.
Yeah, every step.
There's nothing almost nothing for me that has been like, yep, no problem. From physical standpoint, and me and you have been physical our whole lives, it's all hard.
Yep. And every goal you want to get to, it's going to take steps to get there. And every step is a challenge. And sometimes each step has multiple steps within it, and they're all challenges.
All challenges. But again, circling back, loving the process.
Exactly. And
if you aren't, or if I'm not, or you, it's a step back to look at the values. Like I used to, and this, I would be training 10 to 12 sessions in the gym a week.
I remember you doing that.
So for people that know
2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening.
Exactly. And I loved it at the time. And it got me to a lot of things that I wanted to get to, that I said I wanted to get to, and I did. But that changes with a kid, a wife, like a new house, like different things evolve. And if you latch onto the fixed mindset to say, well, I used to do it, I still want to do it, and I got to do it, the rest of your life doesn't develop.
Yeah.
Because you're stuck in the gym for 22 hours a week or whatever it is. But that was the old version and not your updated values. Now, for me, like, and that was a concrete example where I am now. And that was how many years ago? 4, 5, probably about.
Yeah.
I was at that volume. Now I'm in the gym 2 days a week, training,
Right.
2 sessions, and then I do jujitsu 3 days, and then 1 to 2 days of rest or outside stuff. But what a flip! Like you might find me training with weights or some kind of breathing modality for like 2 hours a week versus 20 to 22.
Yep. Yep.
And that's okay. But that's just the whole fix versus growth. You got to change.
A cool thing to touch on there is understanding that you don't always have to be improving or getting better at something. I've learned recently, like, because I've reassessed my values and decided, like, where do I want to be in all these different areas? And I've learned that there are certain areas that I don't want to improve. I just want to maintain, like, so like one of my big values is rock climbing. And okay, so doing pull-ups is important for rock climbing. You're pulling yourself up the wall, if you can do a pull-up, that's going to help you with your rock climbing. If you can do 10 pull-ups, that's going to help you a little bit more. If you can do 20, great. That'll probably help you a little bit more. But being able to do 30, being able to do 4, like, where does it end? You know what I mean? And I've started to realize that there's kind of like a level that I would like to get to that aligns with my values. It allows me to do the things that I want to do in life and that matter to me. And I don't need to be pushing beyond that. And that's really cool, because maintaining where you're at is way easier than getting to another level.
Amen to that. Yes.
Like, I mean, maybe I can deadlift, twice my body weight right now. Would it be cool to deadlift 400 pounds? Maybe, I don't know. But like, what is that going to do for my life? So I'm not pursuing that. And that takes a lot of pressure off you, because a lot of people are in this mindset of like, here's my metrics, here's what I'm able to lift right now, or what I can do right now. I need to make those better. And it's like, well, do you really have to? Like, what are your values? Like, will making those numbers go up, assist you in reaching your values or fulfilling your values?
Yep.
A lot of times not. A lot of times you're just chasing a number because, that's like society's value, is that a higher number is better. Yeah. But is that really your value? Like,
yeah.
And you're putting in all this unnecessary work and just doing something that doesn't really actually lead to the life you want.
Yeah, I see that a lot with what I call like the intermediate athlete. So like not the true beginner, but not the elite or the advanced, but like that in between, like year 2 to like 8 of training, or like structured training. That's chasing the numbers, the reps and whatnot. What I've done in that situation, and it's changed many times throughout the last 15 years, but is adjust those numbers and expectations based on exactly what you just said, the goals and the values. Yeah. So like being that my primary physical goal now is jujitsu, I have to be very careful with where I put my energy outside of that training, and then ask myself, will certain lifts and percentages and efforts improve that?
Right.
And if they don't, like, I think you gave a good example with the deadlift, like, going from a 330 deadlift, let's say you said 2 times body weight, 340, to a 450, is that going to make me any better? Probably not.
Yeah, anything that you really value in life.
No.
It'll make you better at deadlifting, I guess. But that's not my high values.
Yeah, and you gotta take in the sacrifices along the way. So the sharper that spear gets, the more you're sacrificing things on the outside. And so, someone that wants to run a sub 3-hour marathon is going to sacrifice a lot in the field of strength, for sure.
Big time.
Someone that wants to be a full-out yogi, and they are going to sacrifice a lot in strength. Like, there's just different levels of, the farther down this one pendulum you go, the more empty you are here. And there's no right or wrong.
No, not at all. It's what you value. I mean, if a 700-pound deadlift is what you really value and what you love, go for it. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no right or wrong. You're right.
Being in tune, like I tell people all the time. I just did yesterday a beginner lower body seminar on Zoom for Hamilton College, and it was great. And literally, we went over like the basic functions for the lower body to just be healthy and like active. And it was like the air squat, the lunge, the sumo deadlift, the couch stretch, and what was the other one? Straddle pancake. And, that's what I chose. And, we're not pushing that group to say, more weight, more reps, more intensity. That's what works for that group.
Yep. It's like the spirit thing that you said. It's totally right. We're all limited in how much time we have to pursue anything, or how much time we have, or how much time we have to place effort into things. And so you got to be wise with where you put your effort. Don't put it into chasing a number or a goal that's not leading you where you want to be.
Yes.
We've only got so much time and effort, and if you're doing this, it's going to take away from this. So make sure you're putting it in the right place and only going to the level that you need to help you live the life you want.
And that goes back to the values that we've said 10,000 times this session. But like if you're putting in all this time to get a 700-pound deadlift, but it's not in accordance with your top 5 or 10 values, but you're just doing it because of the ego or external reasons, it's not a valid reason, and you're sacrificing really good places in your life that you could be spending time.
Another thing I had here was quality over quantity. And there I was thinking in terms of like doing exercises with correct form and perfect form and actually mastering the exercise versus doing it with poor form so you can lift more weights. I'd much rather do 5 perfect strict chin-ups than 10 chin-ups where I'm flopping around and not going all the way to a straight arm or not getting my chest to the bar or whatever. I don't know if there's anything that you want to say about that, but to me, quality matters above all else. That's what I'm pursuing in any exercise, is perfect quality and perfect form in that exercise. And once I've got that, then maybe I'm trying to get stronger in it too. But maybe this isn't a very important topic, but did you want to say anything about quality over quantity?
Yeah,
quality of movement?
I think the fitness industry has done a great job highlighting speed over, and what I mean by speed is like 4 time, max reps, max weight, max rounds, versus quality. So I just had this conversation with Bob from Garage Gym Oneida yesterday, and he was so funny that you even bring this up, but he was mentioning a frustrating piece with group class there, with chasing that metric, the intensity metric, over quality. And I told him, when I do my programming for remote programming clients, I put in QT, quality time, for quality time. So like quality and for time. So like if I say 20 muscle ups QT, you're doing 20 good muscle ups for the fastest time. And that's a huge difference. But I tell you, beginners, intermediate, or advanced can definitely latch onto that. It's not just for advanced or just for beginners. When you have a true appreciation for quality and how things feel, how they look, how you feel the next day, which should not feel like a bus hit you if you did your training programs wrong, most likely, then that is a really good place to be. QT. I write that for a lot of people.
I like to try, like I'm trying to get people to understand that there's so many ways you can progress, right? You can do more reps, you can do more weight, you can do the same amount of reps and weight but in less time. There's all these ways that the fitness industry typically tells you that you're progressing, but another way that you can progress is by doing it better. So like if you did 5, go back to the 5 chin-ups thing. If you did 5 chin-ups this month, but they were really not the best form, maybe you weren't going to a full dead hang, you weren't getting the full range of motion, whatever, And if 2 months from now you do 5 chin-ups with perfect form, you did the same number of reps, same exact program, but if the quality improved, then that's a great metric for improvement. And it's harder to measure. You just have to be honest with yourself. But that's the way that I would rather improve over anything.
And you're making the base bigger with good quality movement.
Yep.
Because if your air squat, let's take a progression, for example, is okay, and then your goblet squat is okay to poor, and then your back squat's poor, it's all because your air squat was only okay. And it's sort of that downhill slide to just not having good quality.
Yeah, if the foundation isn't good, then everything is good. And that's why you and I, like, we spend so much time on, we're still doing basic things like active hangs and scap push-ups and like all these things that are just like the fundamentals that you want to have rock solid, so that whatever you build on top of that is also of good quality. And you're not going to injure yourself down the line.
Yeah.
Poor form just means that something is breaking down, either like a supporting muscle is kind of weak, or you just have poor body awareness, so you don't even notice that you're like rocking or rounding your back or whatever. So fixing that should be the goal above any sort of metric in terms of like numbers, how much you're lifting.
Yeah, for sure. Like, look at when we assess clients, how many come in and we actually take them backwards on progressions, like, because they were doing,
like, oh man, I can already do this. Why are we going back to this?
Yes, exactly. It happens all the time. Like I saw it the other day, it was like push-ups from the feet, but it was that snaking, humping push-up thing. And like, it was like, okay. And then let's try them from the knees, hollow and strong. And, you know, that was like very hard. And that's, again, okay, then they're going to be stronger longer term. But they had to just go backwards to build that base for sure. Yeah, it's really, you know, and we talk about this a lot, and me and Bob were saying this yesterday, but like co-movement is not so much, we're in the fitness industry, right? But like, I don't like to attach to that solely.
Right.
Because I think that it's done a lot of injustice. I think a lot of it is sleazy marketing for profits. Lots of, and again, the part of this podcast is truth, but like, this is really how I see a lot of it. It's not saying it's all of it, but like, we can clearly see through a lot of the crap within the industry. And, you know, maybe it's on purpose, maybe it's not, but I don't like to fixate solely on being in that industry, because I think there's a transcendence of that. And there's a lot of trainers and there's a lot of facilities doing that. A lot of them are found in like boutique type settings like us. But it seems like that Y is getting wider.
I think so.
You're getting like sleazier type crap stuff and like these gadgets and all this stuff that's just for your $5 a month, whatever. And then you have high quality. So it's sort of like Mercedes and then like whatever. So, you know, then that's confusing to the consumer when they say, well, I could buy this online one-time program for $39 and fix my whole life, or hire a coach for X amount per month, and it's going to be a long journey and hard work. They don't know what's right.
Right.
They don't. And a lot of times the marketing for the sleazy side has a very high budget. And so if marketing is done right, you can sell chocolate to someone with white gloves. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the people who are more on the sleazy side, they tend to have an easier job sometimes of getting business, because they're making all these promises that aren't realistic. And so if the consumer doesn't know any better, then that stuff looks really appealing, because they're showing you, you know, all the top performers and saying that you're going to get there easily. And, you know, it's 30 days to 6 packs and, you know, whatever. It's a little bit harder to market sometimes the honest truth. But you're right. There is that divergence that's happening. And it is cool that there are some people, I don't know what the percentage is, but there is a percentage of trainers out there now who are like us, who are focused more on like the process and continued learning and quality.
Yeah, and I think that the tide is turning with people that are demanding the honesty.
Yeah. Thank God.
They're sort of sick of the shit. Like, eat this elderberry and your whole life is great.
Right.
You can only pay us $79 a month, pop these pills, and don't worry about anything else. Like, that is such a sellout. And there's a lot of people onto that, not just in fitness, and like business in general.
That's one good thing is I do think that maybe it's not everybody, but a lot of people are getting a pretty good BS detector. Maybe it's because they've gone through a lot of those sleazier programs that promise things, then they don't deliver, you know? So they've learned kind of along the way that, geez, there's a lot of crap out there that doesn't work. People are just taking my money.
Yep.
But you're right. People are kind of getting wise to it. I agree with that. Hopefully everybody is.
With time.
We're going to help with that.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, this ties into something else too. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but what did I want to say? Entertainment versus like actually effective programming.
Yeah.
You say all the time, and I've said it before too, that my programming for myself, the workouts that I do are so basic and boring. I mean, I'm focusing on like 2 or 3 movements, and it's not flashy or exciting. And a lot of the sleazier fitness industry focuses on like, you know, what's the new crazy move of the day? What's the new crazy gadget that we're going to use today? And it's like, they're in the business of entertainment versus training.
100%.
And it doesn't get people anywhere.
Yeah, when you set the stage for the entertainment industry, then you have to keep delivering on that.
Yeah.
Like, the best programmers in the world are the most boring programmers.
Yep.
When you look at like Michael Phelps' training plan, or, you know, an Olympic level anything, it's pretty monotonous.
Yeah, nothing is exciting about it. These are just people who are doing what is effective because it's effective, and it might not be boring, and it might not be exciting or flashy or whatever, but it's effective and gets you the results that you want in the end.
But where the level of mastery comes in is simplicity is complex.
Yes.
In programming. So if I can write 2 exercises for a client, but manipulate the number of sets, tempo, rest, and reps within that, and get maximum results for that time, there's a science and a mastery level that I could do a whole like seminar on.
That could be a whole podcast on its own.
Yeah. Oh, easy. Like it, and you can see it within programming. Now, for me, just to write down on paper, like, you know, 20 minutes of like, you know, jumping jacks and, you know, foot kicks and this and that. There's nothing there. Like, maybe your heart rate will go up, and that's fine if that's your goal. But at the end of the day, there's no program design with intent around it. And the clients that succeed are the ones following structured programming that have purpose.
Yes.
And that is, I can promise you, won't have flair. You know, if you want flair, that's fine. Just YouTube like fancy exercises, and like you'll find plenty of them. But if your goal is to maximize your physicality and your potential, and do it in a somewhat, you know, obviously safe manner, like that's the only way is through effective program design.
Do you find, you know, having been doing this for as long as you have, coaching people and hundreds of clients, do you find that that's a struggle, is getting clients to understand that? Like, I mean, a lot of people who start fitness do want the entertainment stuff. They want to have fun. How do you help people shift their mindset to more of a, we don't want the entertainment stuff. We want to do this is boring. And I know this exercise we've been doing for 3 months straight, but we're doing it for this reason and it's effective. Like, how do you get them to value the boring stuff, let's say, and eventually start to appreciate that and not want the entertainment?
Well, I think like first off, there's a lot of boring stuff. So
Yep.
like that in
That's
and of
true.
itself can last years.
Yes. Yep.
And that would be considered new and entertaining to them. But you're right. Once they get to that, say, 4 or 5 year mark, there is going to be a lot of reciprocal type
Yep.
stuff. But again, I look at even like, let's take like a bent arm pull.
Mhm.
There's many progressions and variations of all those progressions along the way, like
Yep.
lots of them. And so I've said this for a long time that if the coach is bored and presents it as boring, it is boring.
Mhm.
But if it's a variation of a ring row and they've done ring rows for 3 years, but it's new and something has changed within it and you provide the reasoning and this is great, that's how it's taken.
Yep.
And so I think, yeah,
And I guess so as a coach, then I like, because in my own training, I find it exciting actually to be working on these things that other people might think are boring, because I understand their effectiveness and I understand what I'm getting out of it. And there's so much subtlety to even like a boring movement, like a push-up or something. There's so much to focus on there if you really learn the movement. I get excited about that and try to communicate that to clients, all these little pieces of a movement that they never noticed before that they can try to focus on to make it actually more interesting. Because even the most basic movements really are interesting when you're trying to master them. Because mastery takes like, there's a depth there where you have to like really be aware of your body and really focus and put all your effort and attention into what you're doing. If you're trying to like truly master a movement.
Yeah, and those basics are what lead to the results.
Yeah.
So, if your goal is not to get physically fitter, but to have friends and to break a sweat and to jump around, then you can definitely be in that entertainment sector.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to maximize your health and physical performance, you need the basics. And like I said, thankfully there is a lot of basics.
Yeah.
Like a lot. And so that can last multiple years. But beyond that, generally, if someone gets that far along the process, they already understand the process.
Well, it's kind of funny that the last thing I had on my list was values.
Oh.
We've crushed that, but like, why are you working out? Why are you changing your diet? Like, why are you doing these things that you're signing up for? Goals are great to have, and we want our clients to have goals. We want people to have goals, but they should be connected to things in life that they actually care about, and this just went back to like my note that I took on this was just, what will make you truly happy in life, and how can what you're doing in the gym or with your diet actually help you achieve that, and I think that the piece there is just awareness, just actually taking the time to sit down with a notepad and a pen and reflect on your values, actually just list them out and go deep into them. Like the things you think you value, list them out. And then why do I value this? Like really take some time to get to know yourself there. Cause I don't think a lot of people do that.
Yeah. And then it's really hard to ask yourself why you even want to be healthy. Like, because that's the correlation, So years ago we had an author come in to our facility, and they told me that they do not like fitness, like at all, but they're here because their back hurts them while they write 4 hours a day.
Yep.
So they want to, now that person did that somewhat naturally, but they want to fix back pain through fitness domain to write value. And so when people can link that, and it's everywhere, like I don't care how anti-fitness or health you are, your values will be affected if you're not healthy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So there isn't an example in the world that you could provide that doesn't correlate to some kind of fitness, nutrition, lifestyle-based program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being in pain or having maybe some chronic diseases down the line or whatever is not going to help you do whatever it is in life that you want to do.
No.
So yeah, health and fitness is always going to tie in.
For sure. One thing I want to remind everyone listening is that we're going to do, starting next podcast, a Q&A section.
Yep.
So if you do have questions for Andy or I, we will answer those to the degree we can. And if we can't, we'll be honest with that because it's about truth.
Figure it out in a future episode.
But we want to spend maybe 20 to 25% of our time talking, answering those questions. So feel free to email that over to co-movement.com, and we'll do our best to answer that.
And I've got a list of a lot of future topics that we can discuss, but if people want to, in those emails, mention some topics that they would like to hear on the podcast, that could be useful too. Give us some direction.
Yeah.
We want to give people what they need. So whatever people are wondering about, we want to hear it.
Yeah, this is fun for us, and hopefully people can take some stuff away and make themselves healthier, more inspired, and happy. So
yeah, man.
So all right, we're going to sign off from the A is A podcast, where we believe truth is the cornerstone to your success.
Nice. Cool. Thanks, Josh.
Yep. Bye, Andy.